In my opinion, co-op campaigns make games better, and make it that much easier to overlook niggling issues as you tend to laugh it off with a friend, rather than focusing on the frustration in a solo campaign.
With each game bringing their own new features and innovations to the acclaimed King's Quest formula. One of the series' iconic features, including a pun in the game's title, was brought about in the second game, King's Quest Romancing the Throne.
The only issue is that for major endings, such as the pacifist ending, you have to do very subtle and specific things. The game gives you little to no hints towards what you must do to achieve that ending.
Hello and welcome to Worldwide Gaming's 100th episode. I'm your host Damien. This week, Jarryd reviews Black Ops 3, Callum reviews King's Quest, and Paul reviews Undertale. All of that right after the forecast. Developer id Software returns to the franchise that gave birth to the first-person shooter proper with upcoming release Doom. The game will be a reboot of the series and features a campaign that is reportedly more than 13 hours long and what promises to be some amazing multiplayer action. You can pick Doom up soon for PC, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. Blizzard Entertainment are trying their hand at the competitive shooter genre with their next game. Overwatch emphasises cooperative gameplay and teamwork, and features a bizarre cast of characters to choose from. The plot's not much to write home about, but the beta seems promising so far. Overwatch will be available for PC, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One.
It's high noon. Draw.
Let's get something on the table right away. It's been a while since I've played a Call of Duty on release, mostly because I've been tired of the iterative nature of the series. While Black Ops 3 is still unmistakably a Call of Duty title, it's packed to the gills with mostly excellent content and value for money. My opinion may be an unpopular one, but it has long been my belief that Treyarch make the best Call of Duty titles, and their latest entry into the series only serves to strengthen that belief. The story is set in the near future where the line between man and machine has been further blurred, with advanced cybernetics allowing soldiers to have superhuman strength, interface with robots and even summon swarms of nanite bees to incinerate their foes. The story is an interesting one and covers issues like post-traumatic stress and brainwashing. I don't want to spoil too much, but it's certainly complimentary of the gunplay found in the game, though it does tend to devolve into shoot more robots territory quite a lot. I do have one major complaint though, and that's with the balance between action and cutscenes. On a scale of 1 to Metal Gear, Black Ops 3 rates a solid 8 on poor balance between doing and watching. If you are frustrated by the Gears of War sequences where you slowly walk through a level with your finger in your ear, be prepared for more torture here. New to the Black Ops series is the DNI, or Direct Neural Interface. This nifty bit of hardware interfaces with your character's mechanical replacements and allows faster traversal, superior strength, and the ability to access one of 3 different cybernetic cores, each one focused on a different playstyle that are essentially explosions, punches, and drone control. The cybernetic cores change how you approach a given situation, and can be pretty complementary if your partners take different cores to the ones you've selected. For example, you could cause a group of enemies to essentially hallucinate a bunch of disorienting lights and sounds, or your partner lines up a devastating dash to take them out. The traversal mechanics seem similar to Advanced Warfare, but feel smoother and more precise, though for some weird reason these abilities are hidden behind a not so obvious perk selection. It's a little jarring to have access to all those abilities during tutorial levels, and then to have them summarily taken away without actually telling you why you can't wall run or double jump anymore. At long last, the one feature I've been missing since World at War is the ability to play the campaign cooperatively. In my opinion, co-op campaigns make games better, and make it that much easier to overlook niggling issues as you tend to laugh it off with a friend, rather than focusing on the frustration in a solo campaign. Black Ops 3 includes the ability to play with 3 friends and implements it reasonably well, but there's a few issues that stop it from being fantastic. The story doesn't take into account that there's an extra person or few in the party, which can be a little weird during cutscenes when characters act like there's only one of you. Treyarch could have spent a bit of time adding some more lines of dialogue to fit a squad, but at least they had separate male and female actors for the lead roles, so your gender choice is actually taken into account. you'll also be constantly jarred out of your perspective when a player triggers a device or checkpoint that suddenly warps you into their view so you can watch a 5-second cutscene of them hacking a door. It's disorienting, unnecessary, and breaks your immersion. That aside, you'll still have loads of fun blasting your way through the 6-hour campaign with friends. At its core, multiplayer is still pretty much what you've come to expect from the Call of Duty series. The Pick 10 system is back, and it works as well as it has in the past and provides more flexibility in designing a class that you want to play. Black Ops 3 is without a doubt the fastest that a Call of Duty title has ever been. There's no limit to how long you can sprint, and the new traversal mechanics open up new and interesting shortcuts to take advantage of. Being able to fire your weapon no matter what combination of crazy stunts you're doing also means that you can be attacked or can attack from literally any direction, so it's more important than ever to maintain situational awareness. Treyarch have also toned down the melee aspect of the game, meaning that people like myself will find it much harder to go on knifing sprees than it was in previous titles. It takes more than one hit in a front-on attack to take an opponent down, fairly similar to how the Halo franchise behaves. New to the Call of Duty series is the ability to select your character class, or specialist as Black Ops 3 calls it. Each of these specialists have their own abilities to take advantage of, from the ability to see through walls, through to being able to overcharge your legs and tear across the battlefield to get to those objectives faster than everyone else. At the time of this review, the specialist system is a little unbalanced, and that's evident when you enter a lobby and find everyone is playing as one of 2 specialists. Here's hoping Treyarch work towards making each of them viable, so we can see some more variety. The new Zombies co-op mode, Shadows of Evil, is easily the best the mode has been. It features a fantastic 1940s urban noir-style map, and a cast of interesting characters excellently voiced by Hollywood heavyweights like Jeff Goldblum and Ron Perlman. Zombies plays much like previous versions have, with wave after wave of zombies assailing you and providing you with points to buy new weapons, unlock new areas and turn on switches. There's a new persistent XP system that allows you to pick your loadout before a match begins, which allows for some true individualism where there hasn't been before. There's also some new enemies here which have clearly been inspired by the Cthulhu mythos, so there's a lot of new content to sink your teeth into. Speaking of zombies, you can also play the campaign in Nightmare mode, which adds zombies to the mix. It's kinda cool, but also poorly implemented, with new dialogue playing over the same cutscenes you saw when you first played through the vanilla campaign. I can see that Treyarch were trying to value add, but perhaps they should have given this idea a miss if they weren't able to put the same polish on it as the rest of the package. If you're playing this on PC, make sure you've got a beast of a computer, as Black Ops 3 is the epitome of a poor port. Your mouse sensitivity is tied directly to your frame rate, so without some seriously low settings or equally seriously expensive hardware, you're going to feel like your character's swimming through molasses. This issue doesn't seem to affect console users, which is not at all surprising. Call of Duty has focused on console versions for quite a while now. Some of you will see this title as the same old Call of Duty, and you're not completely wrong in thinking that. Treyarch have made some safe choices, but they've also tried some new things which pushes Black Ops 3 ahead of the pack, at least for now. They've done an excellent job at adding top-notch value to the package, even if it is lacking a little polish in some areas. If you're up for some frenetic gun-based action mixed with some tactical use of cyber abilities, this is definitely a title worth checking out. Spanning 3 years and almost 8 seasons, this is the 100th episode of Worldwide Gaming. A lot of work goes into creating the show that you know and love, and the game reviews are a massive part of what we do. Over the years, we've reviewed all kinds of games, from AAA titles like the disappointingly overhyped Titanfall.
I'm really one to get swept up in the hype train of any game. I've never pre-ordered anything, and I've never lined up at midnight to get a game or a console. Which makes it so...
Indie titles like Her Story.
Type the word sister into the search bar, and a few new videos show up. You're getting closer, you can feel it. The story before you is starting to make sense. But this isn't your story. This is her story.
And the downright bizarre like Tales from Space, Mutant Blobs Attack.
Derivative of Katamari games, just in a less fun 2 dimensions. And even with a discounted price, I'm not sure that this game is worth your time.
We've even dabbled in a hardware review or two. It's not all fun and games here at Worldwide Gaming though, as the reviews are some of the most time-consuming work we do. There's obviously the fun part where we actually get to play the game, but we then need to condense our thoughts on the game into script form, record the audio, capture appropriate footage and put it all together in our editing software to lovingly craft the segments you see on your TV. Over our 3 years of airing the show, we've produced 102 individual review segments and reached our peak with 21 of those being present in our 7th season. At an average of 5 minutes each, that's 8.5 hours of footage and audio if you play them back to back. To put that number into further context, let's say that each game takes us an average of 6 hours to complete and another 10 to put everything together. That's a rather staggering 1,600 plus hours we've spent producing reviews as a group, and we're not about to stop. And now, for our 103rd review, we have Callum taking a look at King's Quest, so please, sit back and enjoy.
Hi, I'm Callum from Worldwide Gaming, and today I'm going to be teaching you about the history of King's Quest, as well as reviewing the latest entry into the series. King's Quest is a game series a lot of younger gamers might not be familiar with the first game coming out in 1983 as a launch title for the IBM PC Junior, something else you'd be forgiven for not knowing about. The game was revolutionary when it came out, featuring fully animated colour graphics and a huge level of interactivity for games in that time period. In King's Quest, the player took control of Sir Graham of Daventry, who was on a quest to end the suffering of the Kingdom of Daventry through finding 3 legendary treasures, and in doing so, become king. The gameplay in this first game was a step ahead of anything seen before, as it allowed you to roam the game's world via the keyboard, elements that are now commonplace in PC games. The game's story and technical innovations paid off for its developer, Sierra Entertainment, as the game received great reviews. The game is considered a cult classic among older gamers, with a number of modern releases making references to it, with one of the more famous examples being included in Minecraft, in which one of the paintings depicts Sir Graham in his full 8-bit glory. Following the success of the first game, Sierra was ready to capitalize on the series, making a number of sequels. These games proceeded to enjoy varying levels of success, with 1 or 2 falling short of fans' expectations. But despite this, the series had an overall great reception for around 18 years, with each game bringing their own new features and innovations to the acclaimed King's Quest formula. One of the series' iconic features, including a pun in the game's title, was brought about in the second game, King's Quest Romancing the Throne. This was received well among fans and led to the inclusion of taglines such as "Absence makes the heart go yonder" and "Ere today gone tomorrow," as well as "To err is human." Despite all of the critical acclaim that King's Quest had received up until 1998, the series suffered a massive loss of reputability with its 8th game, Mask of Eternity. The monumental failure of this game was credited to essentially having nothing to do with the previous games. In this game, Sierra Entertainment attempted to transition the game into 3D, with a heavy focus on combat, making it more of an action RPG game as opposed to the previous adventure format that the other games followed. After this, the franchise went into a state of inactivity, with several attempts to revive it being cancelled early into development. However, in July 2015, almost 20 years since the disaster that was Mask of Eternity, a new King's Quest game was released, although it technically wasn't the full game. King's Quest: A Night to Remember was the first of 5 chapters to be released as the series' 9th installment, and is what I'll be reviewing today.
Step, kid.
Oh, thanks.
Let me start off by saying that A Night to Remember perfectly recreates what made the original game special without pulling a Banjo-Kazooie and constantly referencing that the series used to be cool. The game doesn't rely on nostalgia, but it does include a fun amount of references to the previous games, such as the covers of older entries to the series being hung on the walls of Graham's castle as paintings. Graham's costume is designed similarly to how it appeared previously, wearing a red cape and his iconic blue feather cap. But Graham himself is portrayed as weak and scrawny, with the game taking place when he first comes to Daventry in order to become a knight. A Night to Remember is a prequel of sorts, as the game follows old King Graham as he tells his granddaughter stories about the past. The game is very similar in style to Telltale's games, with an art style incorporating cel shading and a heavy focus on player choices.
I had 3 choices in front of me. Any would clear my path to safety, and all would have rippling consequences.
A Night to Remember has a number of different ways to be played, with each choice made by the player reaping rewards and/or repercussions.
Find me a wheel, boy. Anything big and round should do the trick. Clever choice! Such craftsmanship, and sturdy too!
Some scoundrel stole our fortune table whilst we were watching the parade.
The first episode story is well written, in addition to being reminiscent of a child's storybook. The inclusion of humour is also written with a young audience in mind, but adults will appreciate the puns made by Graham.
I had to go out on a limb to get past the root of the problem.
Ugh. Grandpa, your infamous puns are not my favorite.
What's the matter? You don't like the timbre of my voice? You'll warm up to the puns.
These are terrible.
The game also features an all-star cast, who are all phenomenal in their roles. Christopher Lloyd, known for his work in Back to the Future, voices old King Graham, and plays a believable king reminiscing about past adventures.
I did it! I did it! Guards, I am ready for Decree 3214.6
Actually, I think it was Decree 1.21.
Tom Kenny, famous for playing SpongeBob, is the Merchant of Miracles, who isn't a major character as such, but he has a few dedicated scenes.
Stand back, you dirty thieves! Wah! Oh, it's just a boy.
Another character, Amaya Blackstone, is played by Zelda Williams, the daughter of Robin Williams.
Maya Blackstone, nice to meet you.
Graham, the pleasure's mine.
Most notable of all the appearances, though, is Wallace Shawn, who fits into his role perfectly, as it's remarkably similar to his role in Princess Bride.
In goes the powder. Guard number 2, if you would. I'll take this one.
Shawn plays Manny, a sly, scheming, and vertically challenged hopeful knight with his eyes set on the crown. Manny befriends Graham early on and provides him with advice about the challenges that take place over the course of the game. These challenges include racing, scavenger hunts, and a lot of puzzles. Don't worry about the puzzles getting stale though, as the game never reuses the same formula, meaning that a new experience is gained every time. Failing some puzzles can result in the death of Graham, but these are all done in a comedic and not at all violent manner. There's no real punishment for dying, which may dissuade some, but I personally found that I enjoyed not suffering repercussions, as it meant I could spend more time exploring the beautiful hand-painted environments. This being said, the game's setting isn't very large, forcing you to spend a lot of time re-navigating paths that you've already been down. For the majority of the game, you don't have to spend too much time heading down the same tracks, but there are a few instances where it feels a bit tedious. The length of the game is great, considering that it's only a fifth of the full release. I managed to get 5 hours out of this game on my first playthrough, which I considered more than reasonable. The usual price of A Night to Remember is $10 or around 14 Australian dollars, but the PC version has gone as low as 99 cents on Steam during sales. If you're a PC user, regardless of whether or not you've played the previous games, I would definitely recommend getting it if you can catch it during one of its 99-cent sales. You're getting far more than your money's worth. Overall, King's Quest: A Night to Remember is a perfect reboot to the series and caters to new players and longtime fans alike. However, not all the 5 chapters have been released as of the day that this is recorded, meaning that I can't review the installment as a whole. As a standalone title, however, the game is a shining example of what can happen when you make a game that appeals to one's inner child. I highly recommend playing King's Quest: A Night to Remember to all audiences.
Before we begin, this review may contain some footage of scenes and secrets within the game which may spoil parts of the game for certain people. Undertale is an indie game designed and developed by Toby Fox, with help from Temi Chang with many of the graphics within the game. The game has influences from many RPG games, with the game's art style being largely influenced by Earthbound. There's a difference on how the combat works, but we'll go into detail about that shortly. However, like any RPG, you start off with an introduction to the story, then you pick a name and jump into the game. The intro is extremely well done, first introducing the player to the backstory, then putting the player in the world and introducing them to some of the characters, and finally introducing the player to the spontaneous changes in the mood of the story from a bright and happy game to a dark and gloomy game very quickly. Undertale is based on childish and cheesy humor, while turning on the player and changing to a dark and depressing story. The player's experience depends on their decisions on who they kill and who they spare.
The player may be passive and not kill anyone at all, the player might take on a neutral route and kill some while sparing others, or the player can take a path of a mass murderer, killing every monster in the underground. The player's decisions may not only change the player's current playthrough, but might also have effects in future playthroughs, or retain what was affected, even if the player returns to his or her last save. This variety in story is one of the things that makes Undertale very well done, giving the player a sense of insecurity throughout the game, knowing that the happy story could change into something much darker. The only issue is that for major endings, such as the pacifist ending, you have to do very subtle and specific things. The game gives you little to no hints towards what you must do to achieve that ending, forcing you to look it up on a guide on the internet. The battles are where most of your path is determined: spare or fight. Those are your only two options you have to end the battle. Fighting is straightforward. Attack until your opponent falls down dead. Sparing is almost like a puzzle, having to look for specific cues and figuring out how to make your opponent no longer want to fight you. All enemies have completely unique attacks, making each battle new and exciting, rather than just clicking on a fight button and dealing a random amount of damage and taking a random amount of damage, such as most RPG games. This variety keeps players engaged in the game, and holds a constant challenge of skill in having to react quickly to a change of attacks, as well as making the player think differently on how to spare a new opponent. In general, the game's battle system is very refined. There are little bugs to be seen, and the uniqueness in every battle against a new monster is very exciting and adds that extra bit of challenge, as well as giving the player a choice to kill or spare a life. The game's aesthetics and soundtrack both help to add some extra emphasis to the game. Everyone might have different opinions on the graphics, however. The very retro 90s video game style graphics are far from what you'd see in most modern games today. Some might say the graphics are bad to look at, some might say the graphics emphasize the game's storyline and characters. With the graphics, I'll leave that up to you, the viewer, to decide on your own opinion. The soundtrack, on the other hand, is without a doubt amazingly composed. The music is not only unique to all key areas in the story, but the music also connects together, like puzzle pieces. The battle music in the first area connects with the battle music in the second area, and the third, and so on, to create one big composition. As well as this, important characters have music which represent and emphasize the character's personality. Leitmotif is a term which describes the repetition of a phrase in music, and Undertale demonstrates various examples of leitmotif, helping to connect the characters together with each other and the story. Some examples are quite cryptic, having to speed up a video to 12 times its speed to reveal it's another song from the same soundtrack. Whether Toby Fox is a genius or just lazy, the soundtrack is beautifully executed with no faults. Overall, the game is very well done. The game's humor is punny and hilarious, the characters are all very lovable, and the amount of choice in the game and how it can affect things is very nicely done. The graphics may be a bit opinionated between players, however the soundtrack is beautifully executed and guarantees that you'll overlook it, even if you don't particularly like it. The way the story works is a revolution in video games, as it immerses the player in a way that novels and movies cannot do, by having the player's actions carry on over within the game. Undertale is without a doubt a game to put on your wishlist.
You've been watching Worldwide Gaming. Thank you so much for helping us celebrate 100 episodes. I hope you're looking forward to the coming seasons as much as I am. I've been your host, Damien. Have a good night.